podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
This is the Blue Moon Podcast. Manchester City news, discussion and nostalgia.
It's all changed for the start of the new campaign as Manchester City begin life without Pep Guardiola at the helm. It's now Enzo Maresca's Blue and White Army, and we're watching eagerly to find out what that will look like over the course of the coming season. On today's Blue Moon Podcast, we'll see what clues we can get about the new setup and the new style from the Tour of Asia. The Athletic's Sam Lee was one of those who spoke to a bunch of players in Hong Kong and Seoul, so he'll be on the show a bit later on, looking at what the differences are that we can expect after the changing of the guard. We'll discuss what happened in pre-season, plus preview the curtain raiser in Cardiff as City head to the Millennium Stadium to take on Arsenal in the Community Shield. Also on the show, we've got Tifo's John Mackenzie, who will tell us about his upcoming book that's looking at the impact Guardiola has had on the tactical side of the game. And as the UK experienced a partial solar eclipse this week, I went a bit mad and looked at the club's record on the days when the sun has disappeared behind the moon for a bit. To go with the new manager, the new players and the new era, we've got new music, a new intro and new artwork, but it's also the same old bullshit. It's good to be back. I'm David Mooney. With me this week, I've got City fan Ciaran Murray.
Hello there.
And from the Daily Mail, we got Jack Gaughan.
How's it going, David?
Not too bad, thank you. Not too bad. Ciaran, are you good?
Yeah, I'm grand. A bit frazzled, realising that I hadn't got the required equipment for this morning's recording, but we're settled.
We're all settled.
Podcast.
Everything's good. You're ready to podcast. Jack, you were out in Seoul for a bit. You didn't make Hong Kong because you were covering the World Cup. But how have things been from you?
You didn't make Hong Kong. Sorry about that, David.
No, I wasn't suggesting that you had to be there. I'm like, you are allowed time off, you know.
5.5 weeks at the World Cup, mate. 10 days off. I was quite frazzled until I heard your intro and then realised that you're probably even more frazzled than me because you were struggling to get through it, which is...
I am boiling. Yeah, I mean, the edit doesn't sound like that, so thank you for spoiling that for everybody else. But yeah.
Yeah, it's I'm looking forward to the season starting. It's going to be really sort of more interesting than the last few years, I think, just because there's everything's
different,
new.
Isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Ciaran, we should also say congratulations because you got married and we're on honeymoon just ahead of pre-season. So how are things?
Yeah, things are good. With Jack's travels and my marriage, I think this section of the show should definitely be called Heart and Soul. But all really good. Married man now. There's the ring. Very, very, very content and happy, and I'm sure City are going to ruin that very quickly. But at the moment,
that's what they do best, mate. What they do best.
Yeah, at the moment, I'm walking on cloud nine. Yeah.
Yeah. So Jack, I mean, you've been at a couple of games in pre-season. I know pre-season isn't quite the same as competitive games, but is it weird not having Guardiola in the dugout?
Yeah, it is a little bit. It's going to take a little bit of getting used to. And also the tendency, which we're going to have to get away from, but the tendency is always like, oh, that's not normal. Like Pep didn't do that. So I've already caught myself a few times when I've been writing things like harking back to what he did as a sort of comparison to what Maresca's doing now, which I think is probably a little bit unfair on Maresca. So we're going to have to sort of catch ourselves and stop doing that quite so much all the time anyway. And yeah, it's just a different dynamic. You're getting used to not only a different personality, but someone who's got a different sort of footballing vocabulary. So you've got to like pick through, after 10 years of Pep, we sort of knew what certain things meant and the way he said them and things like that. Whereas, you've got to learn that pretty quick with Maresca.
I really like his, he says window transfer. I really like that one.
Yeah. I think the club were going to sort of mention it to him and say, oh, it's the transfer window. And someone said, no, don't. It's quite endearing that he says it the other way. I suppose it's a bit more sort of Mercato-y, isn't it?
Yeah.
The way he says it. But yeah, we met him. We met him away from the cameras last week for an interview that was in a couple of national papers and The Athletic. And yeah, really, really nice guy. Pretty humorous. And felt like we saw a side of him that I'd not seen at Chelsea. And I'm not sure how much of that kind of bubbly, piss-taking, kind of side to him we're going to see in front of the cameras. There might be a bit of a juxtaposition between what we sort of witnessed last week when we were at the hotel with him for about an hour and what we're going to see on, I don't know, Friday for the Community Shield press conference. I think they're going to be very, very different people.
Yeah. Ciaran, how are you feeling about it all at the moment? Because it like for 10 years, it's been really kind of simple to know what to expect. And I know Guardiola kind of, we'll actually talk with John a bit later on about the innovations that he would make with his teams and kind of how you maybe didn't expect tactically what you were going to get. And kind of he created things on the pitch that we didn't really expect to see. But you kind of had that comfort blanket of knowing that it was him and that it was the greatest manager that the league has seen, and that you could kind of like he knew what he was doing. Whereas there's a lot more questions around Maresca, and that's not to say he doesn't know what he's doing, but it is to say that he's got things to prove, hasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to address how similar they look, and with the shape of my retinas after last night, it's going to take a while. I'm just going to think it's Pep in the dugout for the half of the season. Yeah, it is. A new manager is always exciting at the start of the season. I remember being excited, for Mancini's first season, and I remember being excited when Pellegrini came in. Despite the kind of controversy about that and the manner in which Mancini was let go of. Obviously, everybody was buzzing about Pep coming in, and then we got so used to it and so adjusted to it, and felt like we never wanted to let go of that. So now all of a sudden, somebody coming in, and I mean the transition has been smooth enough. Like despite the sort of mitigating circumstances, we knew for a while who it was going to be. He's been at the club before. Pep rates him. They've spoken. Obviously, he hasn't had the full squad at his disposal over the summer and pre-season, but at least he's not coming in completely cold, and we're not completely cold towards him. And he's saying the right things and making the right moves. His playing style is similar enough to Pep, but with the tweaks and the newness and the different philosophy and approach, but with a lot of overlapping. So, yeah, it's exciting. Newness change is as good as the rest, as they say, isn't it? So it will be nice.
Is it scary?
Yeah, but there's been just so much change in so many of the other teams, and throughout Pep's kind of tenure, there was so much change elsewhere. So it's scary in a kind of thrilling roller coaster way, in that like it should be safe enough, but it's the unknown and how we're going to get through it, and how it's going to be negotiated. But we still have the squad. He's he's a top manager by all accounts. So the fear is just like, how will the players adjust, and how will the fans, how will the Etihad take to him, and can he get off the ground and like hit the ground running fairly quickly? I suppose that's an interesting one, because you want to get the fans on side pretty quickly, and that might be scary. If it feels that he's off to a shaky start, and then how does he recover? But if it's a new sort of smooth transition that goes pretty well, yeah, we just strap in and enjoy it, really, I think.
Yeah. Jack, has there been anybody yet in any of the press conferences that has accidentally slipped out a hi, Pep?
No. But the
fear is there.
Yeah, everyone always says hi. I say hi. Like, as if, like, I don't know. Why would you say hi? Why don't you just ask your question?
It's just nice.
There was a good one at the World Cup, actually, where Sammy Mockbell, who used to work for the Mail, used to work with me, works for the BBC now, and his question for Thomas Tuchel before the first match was, "Hi, Sammy Mockbell from the Daily Mail," and like Harry Kane was on the top table and twigged it and was like, "That's not right. You work for the BBC," sort of thing. It was quite funny.
What was different about this tour than previous tours? Or was there anything different? I don't know.
Yeah, it was more relaxed. Definitely more relaxed. I I don't think there was that much different, really. Which I know that kind of goes against what others have been saying. I think generally the access is pretty good with City, and there's been probably a couple of additional interviews that everyone got with players, but not. Maybe a couple more, but not like loads and loads. But obviously the big thing was that we got to sit down with the manager, which City haven't organised a sit down with the manager in the newspaper since 2013 or 2012, I think. Certainly never with Pep, despite us asking for a number of years. It's difficult. It's difficult to sort of know. Like, it was different in the sense that there's loads of new staff and loads of people have gone. People that like the fans wouldn't recognise. The backroom staff has kind of probably about 50% has changed. There's been a huge upheaval with that because quite a lot of them, it felt like a natural end when Pep left. But in terms of kind of the structure of it and how like what we were doing day to day, I didn't feel that much different, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, let's get into kind of the differences on the field as well, because a lot of this show is about how things might look under the new manager. As we said already, Jack was covering the World Cup, so went to the tour late. So I strong-armed the Athletic's Sam Lee into taking a look at what the players have been saying about how things have changed under Enzo Maresca.
At the end of last season, Pep Guardiola had this advice for his successor at City.
The manager has to be himself, unique. And the club will be there to support him unconditionally. Like they have done to me, we will do it to them, to him and his staff.
It was widely reported already, but at the end of June, the club announced Enzo Maresca as the new manager. He spoke about the challenge of following Guardiola at his first press conference back in July.
It's important to make it clear that I'm here to do what I want, my job, in the way I want. Every manager is different. Every manager, there can be some similar concept, but at the end, every manager is different. I don't think there are managers that they just copy and paste another manager. It's difficult because I can copy and paste, but I don't see the football in the same way than the other manager. So that's why I don't believe in copy and paste.
So what will Maresca football look like at City? That was my very first question to him.
I think it was a clear identity. The former clubs I joined, Leicester and then Chelsea. Probably the reason why the club decide for me is because they can see some similar concept with the previous manager, and we always try to be aggressive off the ball, control the game, try to be the ones that we impose our idea.
Throughout pre-season, we spoke to a number of first-team players about what life was like under the new manager to try and get an idea of what was changing. When we spoke to defender Josko Gvardiol, one of the things we asked was what the training sessions had been like and what he made of Maresca's early impact.
I think he's a perfect one, but of course it takes time. It's something totally new. It's not easy to change the manager, so it will take time. It's our job to help him as much as possible and also to listen to try to adapt as quick as possible.
You're talking about working on stuff in the build-up there.
Yeah.
Is it very similar stuff to what you've been doing already?
It's similar, but also with some slightly different changes, but it's similar more or less. But of course, it depends who you play against. It's been like that for last 3 years. Every time there is a new game coming, you need to adapt. You need to change something and prepare for that opponent. A
lot of the players have said things are similar, but with minor changes. Antoine Semenyo spoke to us in Hong Kong about how things could look for the wingers.
When you've played Chelsea previously, when he was there, his wide men were always like high and wide and quite free. So that was one of the things that excited me the most when he got appointed. And it's exciting for me as a winger. I get to have 1v1 situations most of the game, and I'm looking forward to it.
Is that going to be slightly different to Pep?
Yeah, I think some games Pep wanted me wide, some games he wanted me inside a little bit more. It was just dependent on opposition. But Enzo is just out wide, and when you get the ball, just create opportunities. So it's just music to my ears.
That's exciting.
It is exciting, for sure.
That might be one of the more obvious changes between a Maresca City and a Guardiola one, but what about the build-up? How will that be different? Here's what midfielder Mateo Kovacic told us.
A lot of playing, moving like a midfielder, ask for the ball and trying to play through the line. So very similar, but he has his own ideas as well, and his approach is very good to the players. So really enjoying it so far.
We saw in training the other day a lot of drills with kind of 3 centre-backs and 2 older midfielders. Do you think that's kind of that 3-2 build-up we're going to see a lot this season?
Yeah, for now it seems like yes, and I think that suits us from the style of play we were playing, and Enzo was playing in Chelsea, so it's a style that we like. A lot of short passes and then trying to attract them and find the second line. So I think it's something that suits us well.
That 3-2 shape in the build-up was also mentioned by Kovacic's fellow midfielder, Nico Gonzalez.
The main difference is the structure that we are playing. Obviously, everyone knows that Enzo plays a different structure than what we used to play, but at the end, it's quite similar. We want to play a lot. We want to have the ball and press and regain the ball as quick as possible. So we try to play inside, to play outside, to try to play everywhere, and especially now in precision.
Is there any big difference between Pep and Enzo?
Yeah, there's the structure. I think it's really clear, the structure here. With Pep, we used to change many things. Sometimes we play, for example, with 2 centre-backs, other times with 3 plus 1. So we used to change more. Now I think the structure is really clear what he wants.
With a lot of the players returning late from the World Cup and with incredibly hot and humid conditions for 2 of the 3 games on tour, it's not been easy for Maresca to try things out during matches. With so much changing, midfielder turned fullback Mateus Nunes doesn't want constant comparisons to previous years.
It's not the change that worries me about it. Even ourselves, sometimes you have to remember what they have done. It's almost impossible to. In 10 years, you win 6 Premier Leagues. This is not normal. And people forget that. City is such a huge club. You think our City is going to win every year, but Liverpool is a big club. United is a big club. Arsenal is a big club. Chelsea is a big club. They all think the same. So it's never easy. You need to be perfect at a lot of levels to win every single competition every season, you know. We're going to try. We're always going to try. We're always going to give our best to do it. But sometimes football is just one detail and then it doesn't happen, you know.
A lot of the players haven't gone into the specifics of what's new this pre-season, but they have said that, in the limited time they've had to train with him, Maresca is getting his ideas across. The Community Shield on Sunday should give us a clearer picture of what to expect from this new-look City when the Premier League kicks off next weekend.
Hi, this is Andy Morrison, and you're listening to the Blue Moon Podcast.
You see stats pop up all the time about clubs and players, and you want to know that exact thing about City. There's an answer. Statscity.co.uk. Want to find out all of the players who played alongside club legends like David Silva, Sergio Aguero or Vincent Kompany? Or maybe you'd like to know which team found it hardest to score past Joe Hart. You can find out City's record in every competition, at every stadium, and under every manager. Just go to statscity.co.uk and browse away. That's statscity.co.uk.
Become a member and listen ad-free. Go to members.bluemoonpodcast.com.
That was Sam Lee, and I have to thank him for that because he really, really, really did not want to do that. But, you know, 2 big differences that the players have been talking about, Ciaran. Build-up and wide wingers. Doesn't necessarily mean a lot, but like it could look very different come this weekend, couldn't it?
Yeah. Having been on honeymoon, I wasn't able to see any of the games live, so I've just been kind of going off highlights and then hearing interviews and reading bits and pieces that you and Sam have done and things like that. But the likes of Semenyo are really talking like they're feeling things to be very different. And when you watch the highlights of the Atletico Madrid game, he was so dynamic and so involved, and there was a real trust to his movement and his play, that, I mean, has been evident before. But, and listen, obviously we can't read in too much because it's pre-season, and there's all sorts of factors that go into that. But if that is a sort of glimpse as to what Maresca's thinking about, and the players are talking about it that way, then it could be incredibly exciting. We've got brilliant wingers, and we have had for some time, but you don't always see the most dynamic side of them. Sometimes when you would prefer them to go, they step back and kind of recycle the play a little bit, and this seemed a little bit more like, there's your aim ahead for it, and it seemed to be, the byline and a cutback. I don't know how long that tactic is going to be, feasible for, but that looked impressive. The build up, I mean, I'm loath to kind of bring him in so soon, and the fears about it, but just how is it going to look with Donnarumma between the sticks? I'm harking back to the cup final with Trafford in net, and realizing that I was watching something that I hadn't seen too often during the season, and that was that the centre backs had split, and they were like a third of the way up the pitch, willing to receive a longish ball from their keeper. Whereas in the Premier League, the centre backs seem to be, yards away from Donnarumma because it has to be a short pass, and the build up is just always going to be affected that way. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that goes, or what they're going to kind of look at to sort of to change that or adopt that or alter that a little bit. But yeah, the Donnarumma factor always causes me a bit of a fear when it comes to build up. So
the Donnarumma stuff at the end of, so we went to an open training session last week in Seoul, and at the end of it, it was kind of rudimentary stuff like shooting practice and people dicking around, whatever. And Donnarumma was doing extras with the two goalkeeping coaches, who was doing like 30, 40-yard chip passes to varying levels of success.
Yeah. So they are working on this. Jack, what have you made of what you saw? Because again, Ciaran's watched highlights. I was watching it on streams. It's different being there. What did you make of kind of what we saw from Maresca's City in pre-season?
I thought they were very, as Ciaran said before, they were very dynamic. Semenyo was a really good point that Ciaran made. I struggled to see how he was going to impact a City team last year. Obviously away from the sort of goals, and you can't ignore the goals, but technically a very different profile to others in the squad, and I didn't really see how it was going to fit. Watching him play, and obviously there's a caveat that they're friendlies, but watching him playing in the Maresca system where it's like you receive the ball and then you go, hit the byline, go as quickly as possible. Just suits him down to the ground. So it might be that he is the one that flourishes. And of the seven goals he scored across the 3 games, obviously, as is now well documented, I wasn't in Hong Kong, but
sorry about
that. All 7 of them were very similar. It was like finding gaps in half spaces and then driving towards the byline, and playing in that half space rather than sort of focusing through the middle. I don't know whether that's gonna change as opposition sort of find different ways of defending against them or not. But it felt quite progressive, quite quick. As you said, there's been a lot of some of the players have been talking about how a reset's good. And I think a few of them need a reset and a refresh, Foden being one of them, definitely. So from that perspective, it could be look, we don't know how it's going to go, but it could be quite an exciting first few months of the season where everyone is getting used to the way that Maresca wants to play, which is, we keep hearing this phrase, similar but different from the players to how it was under Pep. I think by that, they mean that the build-up will be fairly similar, like what you're saying with Donnarumma, like the centre halves are going to be close, and it's going to be, they're just going to try and pick their way through like that, rather than getting to play these expansive passes that someone like Trafford or Edison could play. I think that build-up quite similar, but then just a different attitude when they're in sort of midway through the opposition half, and then obviously there's a slight difference in the way that he wants to set up in midfield, where he definitely wants the two, because as we saw over the last 2 years, that when they play one, even when Rodri's the one, they get exposed on their transitions. He's obviously picked up on that.
Yeah. Well, let's touch on Rodri, Ciaran, because it looks like he hasn't gone yet, but it looks like he'll be going this summer. How does that make you feel? Because if it is going to be a two, and you've maybe got Elliot Anderson and another in there, does that leave you a little bit more comfortable that the other is not Rodri? Because you're not asking one player to do the lone six role. But at the same time, Rodri just had a fantastic World Cup. We know he's a Ballon d'Or winner. We know what City have been like without him in the past. That's not to say that it's not going to be a big loss, but it's kind of like almost as if they've been looking for this solution because they know he's going to be leaving this summer.
Yeah. I'm finding it quite difficult to really put my feelings not only into words, but to kind of settle them in my own head with Rodri, because on a personal level, I really don't want him to go, because I absolutely love him. He's universally adored. You'll never forget what he did. In the Champions League final, so many important games, winning the Ballon d'Or, just who he is, what he represents, and how he put the team on his shoulders for so many years. I'm not overly enamored with, it felt as if he was batting his eyelashes a little bit at least, some team in Spain. It's surprising that it seems to be Barcelona that he seems to be going to, but I think slight preference to me that he goes there.
It seems to me that he was
Madrid.
flirting with the country of Spain rather than any particular club. Yeah.
It's a little bit sad that for the past 2 seasons we didn't see the best of him, and maybe that suggests that it's the right time for him to be going. Also, with Pep leaving and Maresca coming in, Jack's talking about a reset. Maybe this is the time to, if there was a time to sort of say goodbye to him, at least we'll get some money for him. Because him leaving on a free or leaving on a cut price deal would be incredibly sad after what he's done for City and his performance in the World Cup. So there's no hard feelings really, other than kind of sadness that this is the end, and it won't be a kind of like a celebrated sort of goodbye that maybe he deserved after everything he achieved and did for the club. But your question being about the setup going forward, Anderson looks tasty. Anderson looks brilliant. And if Maresca is saying it with somebody else in there too, I know there's Enzo Fernandez linked. I don't know how to feel about that really at this moment in time, but it would be nice to see a new midfield setup if Rodri is going to go. I guess I'll wish him well, knowing that maybe Maresca has some ideas, and these ideas look quite dynamic and fresh and interesting. So, just wants to settle myself on the sadness of losing Rodri. Maybe I might be a bit more equipped to say how the future of the midfield would look, I suppose.
Yeah. Jack, will it be okay with a combination of Anderson, Gonzalez, who's confirmed he's staying, Kovacic, who's confirmed he's staying, Reinders may leave, they're looking at Buadi as well, as Ciaran says they're looking at Enzo Fernandez. Is that enough?
They'll have about 6 options in midfield, won't they? By the time that everyone's in, out, shake it all about. So I think 6... Yeah, 6 is enough. I just think with the Rodri thing, a little bit like Ciaran, it's like he's basically orchestrated this move for the last however many months. solidified when he knew that Guardiola was leaving, which you sort of turn around and go, yeah, fine. Like, obviously, he's been an amazing player for the club. An incredible, we all know his achievements at City. But he barely played for the last 2 years. And then the public nature of him getting a move away and effectively using Madrid to strong arm Barcelona, which is what it has appeared to look like. While doing it on international break in March, which people forget that he'd done that big radio interview and bigged up Madrid in March, then really coy about it during the World Cup, he put off having back surgery until the end of the World Cup because he wanted to play in that, which is basically like, all right, it's minor back surgery, but it could have impacted the start of the season, which suggests that he's not all that bothered about the start of the year from a club perspective. And it makes you feel a bit uneasy. But then you look at it and go, well, there's kind of no loyalty, is there? And it's a short career, so like fair enough. There seems to have been a little bit of change of him since his injury from a sort of personal perspective. I always bore the lads in the pack when we're talking about his comments after Tottenham about the referees.
Yeah,
where he's been a spoiled child. They were ridiculous things to say, and then we write them up.
It's not that's like a staple of his character, though, isn't it? Like, you think of when
he's
teams
not always
have sat
been
in,
like that. He's not always.
But no,
been like
you think of when teams have sat in deep and played a low block and won the game against him. Like, he's quite happy to come out and say there's only one team trying to play football, and it wasn't the winners of this game. Like, he rattled the entirety of Scotland over that.
Yeah, the ref. But again, that's the last couple of years as well, though, isn't it? The Scotland thing. It's kind of. It just seems to have. I don't know, sort of negativity seems to have crept into his discourse a little bit more. I just remember him, and then when he said that stuff about the refs at Spurs, like, he blamed us for, like, he certainly used a Daily Mail piece and a couple of others as reasons.
Yeah, Jack.
During his FA hearing.
If you'd have just reported on him honestly, mate, then we wouldn't have had this problem, would we?
What the fuck are you talking about, mate? Like, shut up. So there's like certain aspects of it that's like he's a different beast to what he was. And I did a piece on the midfield yesterday. Got published Thursday morning, and was interested to know, like, sort of like win percentages with and without him, and how those have changed over time. I was really surprised to find that over the last 2 years, for the first time in his City career, the club's win percentage is better by 10%. It's better without him, which I think is quite a striking statistic, really. It's a small sample size. He's only sort of started 18 games in the Premier League in 2 years, but it struck me, definitely struck me.
Mm. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how Maresca builds the midfield without him. I'm just a little bit sad, really, that I would really like to see what a midfield of Rodri and Anderson would look like, and kind of how that would play out in the Premier League. But it looks like we're not going to get that.
But even like just going back to kind of what it would look like, you don't really know what it's going to look like with Rodri, because the Premier League, the physicality of it is so different to the World. I mean, the World Cup games, they were just being played at a slower pace because of the temperatures and the weather and things like that. And he was brilliant. Like, fair play to him. But that's a slightly different sport to the basketball nature of the Premier League. And you saw, like, the red card at Bodo Glimt and the third goal at Bodo Glimt, where he's just not at the pace of the game. And I think that's
when it's blood and thunder and kind of crashing around everywhere away at Crystal Palace or away at Brentford or whatever. Yeah, what does it look like?
Which is what Enzo Maresca wants.
Mm.
So is that why he's interested in Fernandes then?
Yeah, because they're more like look at Anderson. He's a really energetic runner, really powerful, and like has that. He's got this quite good quality, Anderson, whereas like he punches his passes. It's really, he thumps them, and it just like has a bit more sort of tempo to it. And I think that's the sort of profile that they're looking at and they want. I can't say I've seen too much of Buadi, but I mean, it looks like he's really classy on the ball and plays a little bit deeper and quite physical off it, even for a teenager. So it's a slight change in what the midfield looks like, I think.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how that progresses. Now, if you'd like to listen to the show ad-free and get a whole extra episode at the start of the week, then you can do that by signing up to be a Blue Moon Podcast member. It's just £2 a month, and we do nostalgia episodes that come out on a Monday for members only, with a wide range of different formats. Ciaran, you do plenty of these. Always good fun, aren't they?
Yeah, great crack. It's the sort of shite talk element that creeps in quite often to the main show. It's a little bit more off the leash. So
yeah, it's like half an hour of that, isn't it, every week?
Yeah. So if that's the kind of thing you enjoy, sign up. No, it's always good. There's always like nice little, looking back on the kind of they're forgotten little moments, but you look at it in such depth that those forgotten little moments are given air again to breathe. So yeah, it's really nice. I always enjoy them. They're good fun, and they're great fun to listen to when others are on them. Yeah, it's a must listen.
Yeah. Always good fun. We do all sorts, like with opposition fans and just remembering old games and old moments, that sort of thing. If that's your bag, then just go to members.bluemoonpodcast.com if you'd like to sign up and get that.
You're listening to the Blue Moon Podcast. Follow us on TikTok. Search Blue Moon Pod. We might post a video occasionally.
Now, we talked a lot about what the future will look like under Enzo Maresca at City, and all of that is in the wake of what Pep Guardiola has left behind. What impact has he had on English football in the 10 years that he was here, and how much of what the Premier League looks like at the moment is a reaction to the way his City side played? I've been speaking to John Mackenzie, whose new book, The Spectre of Pep, looks at all of these talking points. I began by asking John how much of what Guardiola did at City was inspired by what had gone before.
This is a big question in the first chapter of the book. And it's not just something that applies to Guardiola. I don't think it applies to all football managers, football players. The ideas about football, that football has a funny way of feeling like we've seen everything before from a tactical point of view. Everything is just going around in circles to an extent and reliving the ideas from the past. But then at the same time, you come across these coaches who genuinely seem to be novel. They genuinely seem to do something that no one has done before in a way that no one has been able to have the same success as they have as well. So that's the sort of big question for me at the beginning of the book, because when you look at what Guardiola does, you can say, well, he's just sort of following on a tradition of football that you can trace all the way back to the first international friendly match between England and Scotland, if you want to go there, and you can trace the Dutch school. You can trace the migration from Scotland down to the north of England, across to the Netherlands, and then through the Netherlands, eventually through Rinus Michels and Johan Cruyff to Barcelona. So in that respect, you can kind of look at Guardiola and you say, well, he's just sort of following on from that tradition. In that first chapter, I look a little bit at the way that the ideas of Louis van Gaal also influence him in that respect. And so, the question for me was sort of like, how do we account for the novelty whilst at the same time accepting that he is part of a tradition? And at the end of that chapter, I just have a really short section looking at Jorge Luis Borges, the Argentine writer, who talks about the same sort of phenomenon happening in literature, where he talks about Franz Kafka and says, I always used to think that Franz Kafka was just a genius who came out of nowhere. But then when I read back in some of the literary traditions, I started coming across ideas, and I was like, that's Kafka-esque, to use the phrase. And I think what he concludes is that actually that's what great thinkers, what great intellectuals do. They take the ideas that have come before them and they make them meaningful in a way, in a new way, in a novel way, and they almost augment the meaning of those previous ideas. And for me, that's a really nice way of thinking about Guardiola. He takes those old ideas and he finds ways of reanimating them in a new context in such a way that he was able to get more out of them maybe than the coaches before. So yeah, the ideas of Johan Cruyff and the ideas of Louis van Gaal are definitely borrowed by Guardiola. But then the things that he does with them, I don't think either Cruyff or Van Gaal would have imagined that was the sort of end point that their ideas could reach as well.
Yeah, there was I always had that kind of thought from Jurassic Park of, you never really stopped to see if you only really thought if you whether you could, not whether you should, you kind of get this Guardiola sort of, well, what if we do this? What if we do this? And I'm kind of interested in your thoughts on how much of Guardiola football exists because of coaches he's been influenced by, but also because of coaches that he's gone up against. Because like every action has an equal opposite reaction. You like when Guardiola does something, coaches do things to try and stop him doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think I have a line in the book where I say there's no Guardiola without Thomas Tuchel, without Jurgen Klopp, without Mikel Arteta, etc., without Jose Mourinho. But at the same time, if you go down that route, you have to accept that there's no Pep Guardiola without Tony Pulis. There's no Guardiola without Neil Warnock, and obviously they have that sort of weird bromance, those two. And I think that for me is a big part of why Guardiola has had so much success, because he is very open-minded, I think, to ideas coming from outside him. Not only in terms of like the other coaches that he's sat across from in dugouts, where the way that they play football has influenced the way that his teams have to play, and he's learned from that and found ways of solving some of the problems they've thrown at him. But I think also, you learn things from the people around you, and he's often had good coaches around him, often holding very divergent opinions about the way the game should be played, who've forced him to change his mind about the way that the game should happen. So, and to an extent, I think towards the end, especially through Juan Melillo, this idea that you can learn a lot from the players. The players find solutions on the pitch that can teach you as a coach, on the training ground, on the actual pitch itself, that can teach you as a coach how the ideas about football should be constructed as time goes on.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about space, because a lot of the early part of the book is about Guardiola's manipulation of space. Mm-hmm. This idea, I mean, it kind of again flies in the face of kind of accepted knowledge of what you want from a football team, and kind of certainly in English football, how you want a football team to play. Because even kind of deep into the Guardiola era at City, we'd have a lot of fans really frustrated that City were playing it slowly and not trying to break the opposition down with pace. And when they had space to attack into, they often would reject it and kind of accept possession instead. So why was Guardiola so successful doing something, allowing the other team to get 11 players in the box, when that, as an idea, that doesn't work for so many other teams and coaches?
Yeah, I think the way that I talk about it in the book is Guardiola sort of flipping the received wisdom on its head, right? And the received wisdom being, when you're attacking, you want to attack big spaces, and when you're defending, you want to defend small spaces. And I think what Guardiola does is he looks at the sort of end point of possession football and says, what's the ultimate problem you face as a possession team? And the ultimate problem you face is a low block. Basically, if you possess the ball well enough, the opponent will fall into that low block. And I think what his idea is that, why don't we take that potential weakness of an in possession approach and make it into our strength? And the way that he could do that was by making sure that he could consistently force opponents into that low block. So he could say, every time we're going to play a game, we're going to control the ball well enough. We're going to control it. We're going to control the ball well enough to not lose it. But in doing so, we are going to create this problem. But then we're going to build a team that's optimized to break those low blocks down. What that has done is effectively flipped that logic on its head, right? Because now you're attacking small spaces and you're leaving large spaces behind your possession shape, because your centre backs are pushed high up the pitch. You're forcing the opponent deep into their own half. And that means that if you lose the ball, then there's a danger of being countered on. But I guess the beauty of making the spaces you're attacking small is that it's much easier to counter press and mitigate those defensive conditions that you yourself has set up. For me, that's the genius behind Guardiola's approach, is that he realised that if he was going to play a game where he was worried about defending small spaces, then you're always going to find it harder to possess the ball. And he sort of flips that logic on its head and says, let's just be brave about the way we possess the ball, make the space as small as possible, keep the ball as far away from our own goal, and make sure we've got really good access to the ball to win it back. So, yeah, I think that the first part of the book is definitely about how it's possible to do that in the defensive conditions that are being set by opponents, and positional play is a really important aspect of that, because that for Guardiola is the tool that he uses in order to be able to achieve that, in order to be able to force games into the sorts of conditions that he wants his team to face, and then have the players optimised to break them down. And that was good enough to get him a 70% win ratio through most of his career in leagues, and that's always going to be good enough to win the league, which is why he's been so successful, I think, in league football across that period.
Yeah, I mean, we had you on the show at the start of last season as City brought in Gianluigi Donnarumma, as a lot of the profile of the players they had, Mateo Kovacic, Tijani Reinders, players that like to get on the ball and carry it rather than players that like to recycle possession. How do you feel? I mean, are you a little bit disappointed that we don't get to see what Guardiola's solutions would be to this kind of era of the Premier League? Because almost what's happened in the Premier League is a reaction to what his style has been and where he's taken it.
Yeah.
And every time that's happened, he's always found a solution. And yet it feels like, because last season City finished it quite strongly, but they didn't quite get over the line in the league. They had a good season with the two cups. It kind of feels like there's a little bit of unfinished business there.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. That said, I think the last couple of seasons were, obviously for City fans, they were viewed quite negatively. But I genuinely think, particularly 24-25 actually, was just an indicator of just how good Guardiola is as a coach, because effectively he had a squad who, for whatever reason, were just not physically up to the task of playing the sort of football that he instinctively wanted to play. And I think he found solutions that not only solutions in the market, and people say, well, they bought Marmoush. There was a few players that were signed in January that just weren't really used very much. Nico Gonzalez, for example. And actually what happened was that Guardiola found, I would say, tactical solutions, using players who didn't have the ability to transition defend as much as he might have wanted to play the system he wanted to. And he sort of dragged them kicking and screaming back into the Champions League spots after having an absolutely awful November, where I think they lost 5-5 at one point, which is the worst run of Guardiola's career. And I think a lot of coaches would just at that point be like, okay, fine, the conditions aren't great for us here, let's just get through this and see out the season. But from January the 1st onwards, City finished with the most points in the league, with playing one fewer game than Liverpool and Arsenal. And now there are caveats to that Liverpool had won the league fairly early and sort of coasted to the finish line, and Arsenal were maybe focusing a little bit more on the Champions League at that point. But I still think it's a remarkable turn of events, especially because I think Guardiola at that point was still thinking, if this is just a squad problem. All of his interviews through that season, he's just like, we just don't have the players to do what we want to do. We need to refresh, and then we'll go again. And I think we see that refresh at the beginning of last season. But actually, through the course of the season, although I think you do see Guardiola trying to implement the old style again, there's definitely that evolution towards this new, more direct style, which I think in part is just forced by the way that teams are defending now changing, and it meaning that the conditions are changed for how you possess the ball. And that's the underlying argument that I make through the whole of the book, really, is that this is a story about the out of possession context shifting, and the out of possession context shifting because Guardiola made it almost impossible to play the way that everyone was playing after Arrigo Sacchi comes along and sort of implements this one size fits all out of possession approach, which became ubiquitous as well.
Yeah, with him gone now, and not likely to manage again, certainly at club level, more likely to manage at international level. How long do you see the shockwaves of Guardiola lasting in, not necessarily English football, in European football? Like how long do you think his impact will still be felt?
So I touched on this a little bit in the epilogue, and I guess the point that I make there is that even if we decide that this new era that we're in now is nothing like Guardiola, there's still all of that. There's still that haunting, to go back to the metaphor that we talked before, because a lot of what's being done now is in direct response to the things that he was doing, right? So we now have really intense out possession. We have teams trying to go man to man all over the place to prevent those free men being able to be used to manipulate opponents out of possession or in possession. Sorry, all of that is just a direct response to what Guardiola was doing, and given what we said before, the fact that football is cyclical, I have no doubt whatsoever that we won't eventually come back to like more zonal ideas out of possession, and at which point we will return to those ideas and we'll say, well, what was Guardiola doing? Will it be the same as what Guardiola was doing? No, but it will still be following that tradition that we talked about before, that you can trace all the way back to the beginning of football tactics history. So I think that he'll always be there as an innovator and a thinker and a resource for coaches in the future. So you get both of those things, right? You get the positive and the negative. The negative being that teams now try and do things that go against what he did. But at some point in the future, I'm sure we will return to a point where actually his ideas will become relevant again, albeit in a very different way.
Yeah, everybody kind of scrambling around at the moment to find out how they look in this kind of post Guardiola world. And with that in mind, John, it would be remiss of me not to ask you, as City go into this season with Enzo Maresca in charge now. He is obviously someone who worked with Guardiola. He is someone who has at least similar ideas to Guardiola. What do you make of the kind of continuation solution that City have come up with here? Because Guardiola was speaking at the end of last season that whoever, at the time when it wasn't announced, whoever comes in, they have to be their own person. You know, Maresca's been speaking at the start of this season about how much he believes Guardiola is the greatest coach. They have similar ideas, but he has his own ideas. What do you think the future looks like for City in a post-Guardiola world?
Yeah, it's really hard to read, you know. I guess if push comes to shove, I would be tempted to describe Maresca as like maybe it's still inhabiting that world that it felt that Guardiola had sort of accepted he had to move on from. In which case, you know, it could just be the case that he's just Guardiola before the evolution stuff happened, and he'll have to go through that evolutionary process himself. By which I mean, it feels as though he still, deep down, Maresca has this belief we can still control games with possession. We can still slow those games down. We can still make those games less transitional. We don't need to worry about the fallout of transition defending that maybe hit Guardiola's 24-25 team. And that, I think that makes it a really interesting sort of prospect, right? Do we see the Maresca tenure being either the sort of convincing everyone that actually there is a way that this old style can still work in the modern tactical landscape, or is it the case that actually it will be us watching that evolution happen in real time, where he realizes actually these things that I thought we could do, we probably can't do, and we are going to have to worry more about how we defend. That's going to impact the way that we're going to attack. I've read quite a few interviews with some of the players talking about how Maresca is all about getting the ball to the wide players and the wingers and having them attack from there. He's also had those quotes that came out in the Manchester Evening News from Simon, where he's talking about the man-to-man, saying, "Oh, I don't think it's going to be forever." And when I read a coach saying that, I'm thinking this is a guy who's saying we don't need to worry too much about the new tactical landscape. It will return. It's coming back. There are going to be things that we can that we can use from the old approach that will still be relevant. So yeah, at this point I don't want to put my eggs in any one of the baskets, but my hunch is that he is still in the old meta, and he is and the question of his success in his tenure is going to be how well he then shifts to the new meta if it becomes obvious that his approach can't work in the modern tactical landscape, if that makes sense. So maybe not the most positive message for City fans, but I think that's the world you're in now. Like when you lose someone like Guardiola after 9 seasons or whatever it was, it's remarkable how much change there will be. And there'll be we saw the Klopp into slot thing where the positive, what you get when those things happen is the positives of both coaches. You get the holdover from the previous coach, and then the new ideas and the freshness from the new coach, and you can ride that wave for a little while, but eventually the old coach's influence dies off, and then the new coach is left on their own. And I think that's what we may see. We may see that happening this season as well. So whether or not that's going to be bad enough that it causes any problems, I don't know. I suspect not. I think that City will finish in the top 4. They'll get Champions League. There's a chance I think they win the league this season in the same way that Slot won after Klopp left. But I guess the bigger question is like, what does the long-term impact look like? What do those... Because I just think there has to be some sort of evolution from Maresca, and I'm kind of interested to see what that looks like.
Yeah, well, it'll be certainly very, very interesting to see. John, when's the book out? When can people get it? I also saw that you had the man with the greatest voice on the internet, Joe Devine, doing the audiobook. So that's if people want to listen to it, they can get it as well, can't they?
That's a real compliment from you, because I think you have a great voice as well. But yeah, so the book is out on August the 20th, which means that if you order it now, it will arrive almost as if you've ordered it when it's out, right? It will be like you just bought a book. The best way of ordering it, well, we have it's called a Genius link, which is on all of my socials. Basically, if you go there, you'll find it, and that links you through to all of the different outlets who are supplying it. I think it's also got like Australia and New Zealand in there as well. And you can also order the audiobook through there as well. So that's the best way of getting hold of it. The one thing I should say is I get asked this question an incredible amount, but it is available in India, but Indian outlets do not do pre-orders, and so you cannot pre-order it, but you will be able to order it on August the 20th, and it will arrive soon after that. So for the Indian audience, that's there as well. But yeah, it's exciting. We're doing a lot of events next week, and this is one of my first media sells. So thank you. It's been really good. I've really enjoyed it. I always enjoy coming on. Always enjoy talking to you, David. So thank you so much for giving me the space to give people maybe a bit of a flavour about what the book's about.
This is the Blue Moon Podcast. We're on Instagram. Just search for Blue Moon Podcast.
That was John Mackenzie. There's a longer version of that interview available now for free on our Patreon page. Just head over to members.bluemoonpodcast.com to find it. I'll also put the full interview on our YouTube channel in the coming days. Now it's time to look ahead to the Community Shield with Arsenal at the weekend. Ciaran, how ready do you feel going into this one? It feels like, again, it's another one of those Community Shields that's sort of like a bridge between pre-season and the season, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I don't feel ready at all. Yeah, I think I could do with some strength and conditioning before.
I was going to say, it's a good job you're not being asked to play for this one.
No, my summer has been a bit protracted with the wedding and the honeymoon. I mean, like the tiniest violins ever playing here, but it's just all felt kind of very, very busy and then very, very relaxed. So the football has just been so far from my my sphere of influence in my head. So it's came on me very, very quickly here. And as I say, just watching highlights and not really, getting involved maybe at the World Cup. The World Cup kind of takes away from things as well, because that's where your football focus goes for a while. So yeah, I can't believe it's the curtain raiser already. And I kind of moved Arsenal really, really far out of my mind as well. annoying they are and how much they got under my skin.
You got to confront it again on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, it's not going to be pleasant. Like, just hoping it goes to penalties and Gabriel steps up. I mean, that's what we can dream of, you know.
Yeah, I wouldn't back City in a penalty shootout either, though, to be honest, mate.
No, definitely not.
That's very much movable object meets stoppable force right there and then, isn't it? Jack, what are you expecting at the weekend in terms of players that we'll see? Because obviously some more of the squad is back now from those that didn't make pre-season. Are we going to get a glimpse of Anderson, bit of Haaland, maybe some Rodri?
Well, definitely not Rodri.
Oh, he's had his back surgery, hasn't he? Yeah.
Rodri's not due back till Friday and won't be fit, and also won't want to play, irrespective.
Well, I was going to say we've been here with Leroy Sané in the past, haven't we? Yeah.
Yeah, the Sané thing. Did they play Sané out of spite? I can't remember.
I think they did.
Well, he got injured anyway, so it worked.
Yeah. I mean, they wanted like Sané. I think they were talking about over 100 million that summer, and then he went for not a lot at all the year after, did he? I think. Yeah, I don't know. I think the guys that were back this week, so like Doku, Haaland, Anderson, probably see him off the bench. I think the team will be very similar to what played against Atletico last weekend. Kovacic seems to be the pick as the number 6 ahead of Gonzalez at the moment. I don't think Gonzalez started a game in Asia.
Is what he said a bit weird? You know, about
really weird.
Weird. I don't really care if I play or not as long as we win things. It's a bit
bizarre.
odd, that.
Yeah, really. Because City were open to offers for him at the start of the summer, and a sort of a decision had been made on like it's not really worked out, but nothing appears to have materialised. And like when we spoke to him last week, he was like, yeah, if I don't play a single game in the Champions League and we win the Champions League, then happy days because we've won. And actually, he talked about the FA Cup where he was like, I didn't play, but it was such an amazing day for me because we've won. I was like, oh well, you know.
At least he scored in the semi though.
He wasn't even on the bench.
Like he had a little bit of a run in. Like he had a bit of a part to play in that thing. But like if you win the Champions League without playing a single game and you get your medal, like are you going to say to your family, "Oh, here's my Champions League medal that I didn't contribute to at all"?
Well, I mean, Calvin's been doing it, hasn't he? So if it's good enough for him.
It's not the benchmark, though, is it? Surely.
No, but the FA Cup thing from Gonzalez was striking in the sense that he wasn't even in the match day squad, and he was like, "Yeah, it was a great day for me." I was like, "Oh, okay." Like, it's a different. You just think with footballers, they're so competitive that like they'd have a sulk on when they didn't get in the squad. I remember when the year before when Rico Lewis and James McAtee didn't get in the squad, and they were left out, and like they weren't happy at all. Like there was a lot of negativity around that, whereas Gonzalez didn't seem that bothered.
Yeah, taking no bad faces to the absolute extreme there, really, in many ways. The Lewis thing and the McAtee thing is even more bizarre when you realise that Claudio Echeverri got his debut in that game.
Yeah, much like Gonzalez in the semi last season. Lewis was the man, wasn't he, in the semi-final?
Yeah. Absolutely baffling afternoon. Ciaran, given that it's again City against Arsenal this weekend, can we learn anything from this game about where the rivalry for this season is at? Because City are going in without Guardiola. We don't know if they'll do the better later in the season thing that Guardiola's City always seem to do. Arsenal are reigning champions for the first time. That comes with different pressures. Like there's a lot of interesting little narratives to this game.
Yeah, there are, but the Community Shield just never lingers as a thing in my mind, and I don't think too many others. What is kind of set up on the day, it very quickly sort of fades into the ether, and it is just a curtain raiser. There's nothing really to be gleaned from it too often. Isn't there a mad stat that whoever wins the Community Shield never goes on to win the league? It's a real rarity. So it's just a nice sort of semi-competitive. There is silverware on the line, but not really an official trophy, depending on your kind of stance on that. with the rivalry between Arsenal, it's probably going to be sort of reset and refreshed a little bit with the new manager at the helm. And unless it gets a bit feisty at times, I think it's just a nice run out. It's not even at Wembley, is it? So just neutral. Yeah, it's just I think it's just minutes in the legs. Really, there's nothing really an awful lot to take from it. I don't know whether I'm alone in thinking that, or whether that's just the way that the Community Shield has kind of embedded itself into my head these days. Like,
but I'm just wondering, rivalry wise, if like things are getting back to that old "oh God, can't stand them" sort of level. When you see things on social media about ticket sales, and you see things like edited graphics about how few tickets City have sold, and that all this sort of stuff, you're just kind of thinking, God, we had a nice couple of months without this in the summer, and now it's here again.
Have you seen that edited graphic? I think that's the one you're referring to, where it's like it's not
quite
even
obviously
AI.
done in paint. Yeah.
And there's like 10 different sections of stand 320 or whatever. Just it's 320, 320, 320, and then somebody's like hand drawn in the I guess that's that sort of social media, Twitter nonsense rivalry stuff that most sane people have hopefully learned to put to bed and ignore, that sort of rage baiting. But if you give it just 3 seconds of a glance, you go, right, somebody has done this purposefully, manually to rage bait. It's so far from the truth. And actual, and not that a blue tick matters anymore, but blue tick accounts are picking this up and saying about it. Hopefully most of us have learned to move on from that kind of thing, the online rivalry stuff, and just sort of let it manifest itself on the pitch. And I don't know, in the nature of this game, as I say, with the new manager, the Pep Arteta stuff had got a bit tasty. Rodri was a bit of a hate figure who's not going to feature. In as much as there can be a bit of a reset, it's a new season. Arsenal got their league. As shite and as tainted as it was.
But at what cost?
So we'll go again, and it feels more like the start of something maybe than continuing on with any kind of bad blood from previously. I think. Let's see. I don't know.
Interesting, you said, it wasn't even AI, whereas I was looking at it and it's like, at least it wasn't AI.
I was going to describe that as GCSE Photoshop, but it isn't GCSE Photoshop, is it? What is it?
No, it's MS Paint. That's what it is.
SATS level Photoshop?
Yeah.
Would you say?
Yeah.
Nursery, obviously it's above nursery, isn't it? But
yeah. There's something almost impressive about the fact that it isn't AI, because the go-to thing is just to easily set that up. So somebody's actually realizing that the tide is turning a little bit on AI and people don't like it, so they've gone and they've sat manually and done that. So something
fair play to them.
Quite endearing and impressive about it in a way.
Yeah, it's no Dakeb graphic, is it, to prove the ball was not over the line? That will always be the gold standard. Yeah. Jack, a bit more broadly, how do you see this season going? Because 9 teams have new managers. Bournemouth, Chelsea, Crystal Palace, Fulham, Ipswich, Liverpool, City, Newcastle, Nottingham Forest. They all go into the season with a new manager. Then you've got Spurs and United, who changed at the back end of last season. It feels like this is anyone's, really.
Yeah, there's a sense of going into the unknown, I suppose, isn't there, for quite a lot of teams, particularly with, as we said before, with City. You don't really know how it's going to go. So it should be good. I think it'll be a more engaging season. I didn't really feel I was with the rhythm of it last year. Didn't really grab me at all last season. So maybe City might be a microcosm of the league as a whole, really, in the sense that it needs a little bit of a refresh and something a bit new. And
could we see with so much upheaval? Could we see kind of an abrupt end to the whole set pieces man to man thing? The rough and tumble.
I think so.
That we got
last year. It was interesting when we spoke to Illuminate, when we spoke to Maresca last week, where he was talking about how his prediction is that the sort of obsession with man-to-man marking all over the pitch is going to change, and that's going to be the next sort of tactical transition in the Premier League, and he doesn't. He gave us 3 examples of like underdogs going man to man in the Champions League last year and getting absolutely smashed. Amusingly, one of them was Chelsea against PSG.
Is that just after he left? Yeah.
yeah. And but he thinks that, underdogs are gonna. So if City play anyone in the bottom half, he now thinks that they're probably over time, whether that's next season after, that they will then maybe alter the way that they try and defend against them, because they have seen, I think another one was Atalanta played Bayern and got beat 6-1, I think, and there was another 6-1, I can't remember which game it was. And he just became
Newcastle,
quite evident. Yeah, that was it. Yeah, it was Newcastle, yeah, exactly. And it just became quite evident that the best teams are finding ways to sort of get around this now. So from Maresca's perspective, he's trying to create a team that is good, or is strong when they have to go man to man at the moment, because I don't think he's saying it's going to change immediately. But he's also obviously got one eye on what it might look like in 12 months or 24 months time. So I think with all these new coaches, the Premier League is obviously it won't be the same, and then the set piece stuff might change as well. So yeah, it's a bit more. I think there's a bit more sort of vibrancy and buoyancy to it this time.
Yeah, let's see how it goes. Right then, first show of the new season, and as I said in the intro, I'm already back on my bullshit. This week saw a total eclipse across parts of Europe, with a partial eclipse here in the UK. It got me wondering what City's record was like around eclipses. So for nobody's benefit whatsoever, here we go. In their entire history, City have only ever played 4 times on the same day as either a total or partial solar eclipse that has been visible from Manchester. But first, let's talk the science. Here's the BBC's science correspondent, Palab Ghosh.
Essentially what happens is that the Earth, the Moon and the Sun completely align. The Moon blocks out the bright disk of the Sun, and what we see is the Sun's corona. Now, not everyone is going to see this. If you're in either side of the path of totality, you'll see what's called a partial eclipse. People in the UK will experience that, but even that is particularly spectacular.
It's at this point where we apologise to our American listeners, because the eclipse this week wasn't visible from your side of the world. Now, these eclipses were partial when they were viewed from Manchester, but some were total eclipses elsewhere in Europe. That's how it looked the first time City played on the same day as one, as they lost 2-0 to Newcastle at St James's Park on the 24th of January 1925. For a long time, that was the only match on an eclipse day, but then decades later, there were 3 more in the space of around 25 years. The first was a partial eclipse on the 12th of October 1996. City went away to QPR's Loftus Road and drew 2-2, with City fan and future City player Trevor Sinclair scoring a remarkable 40-yard volley.
As soon as you cross the white line, I want to win. I could be playing against my own family. If I score the winner, I'm going to celebrate. And it was a 40-yard volley, wasn't it, El Grande? Dibble, I remember that goal. It's one of my favourite goals, actually. If I score a goal, I'm celebrating. It's a personal achievement, and you want to celebrate that. I supported City, but that was about it. I was still delighted to score as a professional against City, and yeah, that is still one of my favourite goals.
That was on the day of a partial eclipse. The next match that coincided with one of those took place in October 2022, as around a quarter of the sun was covered in Manchester at lunchtime. In the evening, City drew 0-0 with Borussia Dortmund away in the Champions League to win the group.
In the first half, we had the problems to make our high pressing, and that's why we correct in the second half to do it differently. It was much better, much productive. We didn't suffer. And the second half, the result was good for us, also for them. They defend 5-4-1, striker dropping, and they did one push, so we make a long possessions, and both teams are happy to that. We are first in the group again, and they are happy because they will be as well in the next 16.
On that day, the eclipse was nothing like what happened in August 1999. That year, Manchester didn't quite get a total eclipse, but some people travelled to the south coast of the UK, where the whole of the sun was covered by the moon. That happened at around 11:15 in the morning. Then, in the evening, City beat Burnley 5-0 in the first leg of their League Cup first-round tie. Mark Kennedy scored his first goals for City that night on what he says was a transformational evening in his life.
At half-time, Joe Royle gave me the biggest rollicking I've ever had in my life. And it was career-changing for me. Because in that dressing down he gave me, I quickly realised I am in last chance saloon here. It can't be I was unlucky at Liverpool, it can't be I got the silver. This one's on me. So even if the manager turns out to be the biggest you-know-what in the world and it's the worst club ever, I have to make this work. And by the way, Joe's amazing and it's amazing. Look. And I got really lucky actually because I was playing left wing, I cut inside, I actually went to put a cross in with my right foot and it flew in the top corner. And from that you get confidence and you get a spring in your step and then just kicked on from that. But it came from the conversation with Joe at half-time. So that conversation with Joe changed my career.
There have been plenty of games around partial or total eclipses, but only those 4 on the actual day. If we're taking anything from this ahead of Sunday's game with Arsenal, and believe me, we absolutely should not be, City's record in their next game after a solar eclipse is almost dead even, with 8 wins, 7 draws and 7 defeats. This looks like a classic case of me doing the research, so the item was going to happen come what may. Sorry for wasting everyone's time.
Hi, I'm Andy Dibble. You're listening to the Blue Moon Podcast.
You're listening to the Blue Moon Podcast. Won't somebody please mention the charges?
We're going to finish with some listener questions. Get in touch on email, contact@bluemoonpodcast.com. You can find us on Blue Sky, just search for bluemoonpodcast.com there, and find us on Instagram as well. Again, just search Blue Moon Podcast. We got this from John on the emails, who says, what would be realistic aims and ambitions in the post-Guardiola era for City? Ciaran, we've spent all show talking about how things are going to change. What does that change look like results-wise for you now? How are you feeling about the prospect of just ultimately not being as successful as City have been over the last 10 years?
It's a difficult question because, obviously I want as much success as possible, but with Pep, in every competition, usually it felt like success was on the card or feasible or achievable. And when you think about some of the records that were broken, particularly kind of around Centurion season and, the real peak of the Klopp's Liverpool rivalry, like some of the results, some of the runs, some of the records being broken there were just unnatural. And it was so much fun and it was crazy. Winning the treble, it felt like everything was achieved and boxes were all ticked. And then some of the kind of obviously the 4 in a row and stuff, but the past 2 seasons, just wasn't as knitted as neatly together. So there was a little bit of a glimpse into what it would be like to not be able to put those runs together and to have patches of bad form. And it, there was a bit more jeopardy and a bit more realism. It harked back a little bit to pre-Pep days when you didn't know what was going to come, and at some points, particularly 2 seasons ago, you didn't know where the next victory or point was going to come from. So it was really harking back to old City days. So yeah, it'll be nice, I suppose, to almost feel like we're living amongst mere mortals again. But don't forget, Maresca is a talented manager. He's got the job for some reason, and that the squad is made up of some absolutely world-class superstars. So, you're still expecting success and you're still expecting things to go well. You're still expecting City to be involved in competitions, maybe not to put together all the scary runs and break the scary records that we have in the past. So, again, going back to your kind of first question, this is the exciting sort of scary moment about it all. And, we've talked loads about refreshing and restarting, recharging. So that's going to be the nice thing about it. Like, let's see if, as I say, I hope he gets off to a good start, because you don't want the kind of daggers to be out for him straight away. But yeah, it's going to be nice to not be completely living in expectation, given that we had the best manager of all time, arguably. It'll be nice to sort of just take everything as it comes and hit and hope, really, I suppose.
Yeah. What would a good season be, Jack?
Difficult to know, isn't it? Like, challenging. Just being like, I mean, the old Guardiola thing was like, a good season is if we're in March and we're challenging on all fronts, and it's like, we are there, sort of, that kind of immortal quote. Yeah, obviously Maresca knows that they've got to win silverware, but I think he's also a realist and understands that the level of success they had in the first 7 or 8 years of Guardiola's tenure is not going to be able to be replicated, particularly as everybody else is getting better, spending more money, look at Chelsea, like Alonso's cracking manager, so you would expect them to improve steadily over the next season or two. I think he's a realist about it, but that doesn't mean to say that they can't continue winning titles, winning domestic cup competitions. And the funny thing is, the way it works, like the law of averages or Sod's law or whatever, is that they'll probably go and win the Champions League just because that's what happens when you've had Guardiola's won them so close so many times, only won it once, and they'll probably just go and win it because that's just life, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I didn't realise, but this is the same pairing for the opening show as it was this time last year. And back then we had a question in to predict what 25-26 would look like and give it a rating out of 10. We got this as an absolutely wild take from Ciaran Murray here.
It is hard to kind of validate or, quantify what a sort of 10, 9, 8, 7, 6 out of 10 is. I would like to predict that City will have an 8 out of 10 season, but for me that would be a league and cup double.
That's only an 8 out of 10.
You don't think so?
It does feel like a bit of a renegade shout, that.
Where's the quantification of what an 8 out of 10 looks like then?
That's the
point.
That's
the beauty. It's the beauty of the question, isn't it? I would say they'll have an 8. I would predict that they'll have an 8 out of 10 season, but that would be a top 2 finish and silverware.
Now, Jack, a top 2 finish and silverware. Exactly.
Well, why did you cut off?
Because we get exactly what you had to say. Top 2 finish and silverware. You were spot on.
Yeah. Thank you. First time
Ciaran,
ever.
what does an 8 out of 10 season look like this year?
Right. So Jack and I were on the live show at the end of the season before that. Do you remember? With Higgy.
Yeah.
And we were talking about like how to grade things out of 10, and the whole room turned on me because it turns out that I don't really know how to quantify things out of 10, and I really struggle with it. And then it came up at the end of that show last season, and I was like, oh, I'm strapped into this again, and then I can't believe you've brought it up, because I was like, I hope I never have to do that again. Grade things out of 10. So what? Again, I think you cut it off before I sort of explained what it meant. Champions League would have been like 10 out. Champions League plus another would have been 10 out of 10. 2 pieces of silverware would have been 8. But Jack then said what? Top 2 finish and silverware was 8.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So where did I go wrong then? Just explain it to me.
Because you said a league and cup double was only an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, because failing in the Champions League. And
I think if you win the league title, it's a minimum of an 8 out of 10. So then, if you were going to win anything on top of that, then it would
got to be better, hasn't it?
Nudge slightly, yeah. I would say.
Fair enough.
I understand what you mean,
so
because it gets a little bit tricky.
I'm sorry that it's had to come to the show for me to openly asked to be educated on this, and in the previous times I was just talking as if I knew. But yeah, I could feel myself getting getting hatred from all corners, and then you brought it up again. Yeah, so it does sound pretty bad. This season, I think that the numbers shift a little bit, don't they? Like, you were talking such high numbers because we had Pep, and the sky was the limit, and the level of achievement that could be gleaned. The numbers were ridiculous because just what you could get and win under him, everything, the charts moved. So obviously any silverware, I think, for Maresca, and top 4 sounds a bit dire, really. So top 3 plus silverware would be really good.
It'd be an 8 out of 10.
I don't want to say, and help me with that. What would that be out of 10?
What would an 8 out of 10 be, Jack?
If I said last year, if I said 8 out of 10 was a top 2 finish and a piece of silverware, was that what I said? That would be 8 out of 10?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's wrong. I think that's a 7. Because if it's an FA Cup or a Carabao and a top 2 finish, I think you're 8. To get to an 8, you've got to have won the league title, the Champions League, as a starting point.
Yeah. So what would you give last season now? A cup double and a top 2 finish?
Bearing in mind that they took the title race to the penultimate game of the season as well.
I would give that an 8 because it's a cup double and they got so close to winning the domestic treble.
Because if they've finished second in the league in the past, but the title's been over for months, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think if they were to finish top 4, it would be a 6 out of 10. And then goes up from there. But it's very, very. I think obviously be stupid to bet against them finishing in the top 4, but no one knows how it's going to go. Looked like the players really took to what Maresca wanted to do during the pre-season tour, but then they were missing 5 or 6 of them from the World Cup. Maybe they take to it slightly differently. You don't know. There's loads of unknowns about it, which is why it's going to make it a fascinating beginning to his sort of tenure.
Yeah, well, there we are. Absolutely no clearer on what a good season would be, on what an 8 out of 10 season would be. But
I think we nailed the 8 out of 10. I just don't know what a good season looks like this year.
Yeah, we've absolutely muddied the waters from keeping it consistent from last year, though. So roll on the start of next season to find out what we think then. But that is it for this first episode of the new season, which is actually our second episode because of the Kevin Keegan special that we did a few weeks ago. Go and check that out if you haven't already heard it. Thank you very much to my guests for this one, Ciaran Murray.
Thank you very much, lads.
And Jack Gaughan.
Thank you. Cheers.
There's more of a season preview available for members now, as well as our member-exclusive episodes kicked off again this week. This first one is an agree to disagree season preview, as I asked Mike Hammond, Andy McNabb and Matt Holland some devious questions to get their feelings ahead of the coming campaign. That's available now by signing up for just £2 per month at members.bluemoonpodcast.com, and there's a clip of it coming up shortly. I'll be back after the Community Shield, so I'll see you then.
Thank you for listening to the Blue Moon Podcast. You can get ad-free shows by becoming a member, and you'll get an extra episode each week as well. Here's a clip of the latest one.
The thing is, we all love Phil. All City fans love Phil and want nothing but the best for him. The question is, does he need to have the season of his life? Well, no, because his level is so good that if he has a good season next year and does sort of the average of what he's done for the previous 3 or 4 years and gets 10, 15 goals a season, plays well, becomes that link man that we want behind Haaland, we're going to be absolutely laughing.
Maybe he doesn't need to necessarily have the season of his life, but I think him having a very good season would, and obviously I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but I think it would benefit him.
I want him to be Alan Oak for the most appearances for City. I want him to have the most goals, most assists, because he's been here all his life and he's retired at 36 with 30 odd trophies and the greatest player we've ever had, and we build a massive statue to him. That's what I'd love to happen.
So maybe it's that this is a crucial season, really, isn't it? I just want to confirm something. When you say build a massive statue of him. Are we using the term massive in the Burt?
Yeah, absolutely,
in the Burt
mate.
vernacular?
Yeah.
Right. Okay, that's good.
all, yeah. So like floodlight massive sort of thing. Yeah. As big as floodlights.
Good. As main road floodlight. Yeah. All right, I'm with you.
To listen to the full Nostalgia Show, sign up at members.bluemoonpodcast.com and join us next time for another episode.